Hey guys, it is Alpha from Alpha Animations here, and wow, you don't normally see this on my channel, a default scene for Blender. But anyway, today we're going to be doing a scripting tutorial, and that's just because so many of my friends have requested one, so yeah. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to... Well, you'll probably have the default cube because that's the only thing I haven't changed. And actually I should probably start a screencast so you guys don't complain that I haven't got one up. But yes, you're going to delete the default cube, as like every single tutorial ever is going to tell you, and then you're going to add an armature. Now, because we want the script to be controlling the armature, we're going to be referencing to this armature a lot. Now, the script is obviously written in text editor, so you split your window, which I've already done, then change it to text editor, and then add a new text. Now what you're going to have to do is choose this. For this I'm going to call it tutorial because, well, pretty much everyone who does a tutorial calls it tutorial, so you're going to call it tutorial, or whatever your rig is called. So for example, Ender Dragon. Then you're going to go .py. Now that is very important because that tells the program that this is an executable file and it can be run as a script. Then you're just going to tick register, and that will basically mean that Blender's going to register it and say, hey, this is a valid script, blah blah blah. Now, you can turn on these three formatting things if you want to. I mean, you don't have to, but you can. Now, I'm just going to copy in some stuff that I have from another thing, and then show you what they are and what you can do with them. Now, first of all, you've got to define a class. And that's basically, yeah, this entire script. This script is classified as a class. Then you've got to give it a name, so that's my name there, but we'll just change it to tutProperties. And then you've got to choose a location. Now, my location at the moment is bpy, which means Blender Python, .types, so the script is going to be applying to a certain type of entity, or whatever you want to call it, within Blender, and that's going to be the panel. And this here is the panel. Now, you've also got to register the space type, 3D view, which if you look in here, that's called the 3D view, so that makes sense. Blender region type, UI, which stands for user interface, and that just basically means it's a menu or is going to be used by the user of Blender. And then just a label, and that label is what's going to appear at the heading. For example, that label is transformations, that's screencast. Our label, for example, will be, again, tutProperties. Okay, if that makes sense. I'm going to have all of the code in this description, by the way, so that you can check it out for yourself. Now, I'm going to copy in some more code because, yeah, we've gone through all that code, so we need to get on to the next stuff. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to define a draw function which references to itself and the context. Don't even ask for an explanation of that, it's really complicated. Just know that you've got to put that line in, and that's basically going to start drawing your menu. Now, here we're going to reference some variables. Now, these are just the same variables that I found in the code that I reverse engineered. So you can change them if you want to, but since you're going to be using them and they ought to make sense, then there's no real point in changing them. But basically, you're going to have your layout, which is basically just those two. And whenever we write layout down here, it's going to go layout. It's going to go self.layout instead of just layout. And the same with column. It's going to do layout.column instead of just And pose bones, again, another, well, I guess it's not really a variable, it's more like a reference point. Okay. Now that we've referenced all of our variables and done all of that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start putting in the actual code. Now, we're going to add vis column1 equals column.row, another variable. However, I don't really understand that variable. But basically what that's going to do is, if we run this script... Oh, shoot. I should probably go to the scripting view. So, yeah, if you see here, there's the menu. You can go to different views. So now I'm in the scripting one, and then you can just open up your script again. But basically, our script failed. Oh, right. And that's because we haven't closed our script. So, a script's all well and good, but if you don't have a close for it, it's just, yeah, it's gonna give an error report. So, I'll just open up my other one and grab the closing script, and then I'll copy that in and again explain it. Okay. I've got it on my clipboard now. Paste. Okay, now basically what this means is bpy, again, Blender Python, .utils. Basically, you're going to the utils class, and you're calling the register function. Now, and then you're just saying, I want to register this class. However, it's not going to register unless you have the name correct. So, this name needs to be exactly the same as it is at the top. So, there it's tutorial properties, here it needs to be tutorial properties. Here, back to here, we should be able to run the script now. Again, didn't work. Ooh, now I'm curious. I wonder why it didn't work. Python script failed. Ooh, this is very weird. Okay. Well, it's better that these come up in the video now because, yeah, it wouldn't be very good for them to come up later. Okay, possibly it needs this. Another line of text from the other code I'm stealing stuff from. We'll just see if it runs now, and then if it does, expected an indented block. Oh man. Oh, this is such a mess. Oh, of course it isn't working. Cardinal rule, and I broke it. At the top of your class, you have to actually import Blender Python, because otherwise you're not going to be scripting it with anything. So I'll just get rid of that because we haven't got to that point in the tutorial yet. Now it's going to run. Sorry about that. And then if we just minimize all of these and go to the bottom, as we can see, here's our thing we've created. Now, you may want to note that it's only going to work properly if you have an armature selected, because here we've told it that we want to do a layer, but cubes don't have layers, so yeah. Now I should probably explain this because this is what's making that main menu layer button, which if we go into the armature, hit another layer, then we can turn off this layer, which is going to turn it off there. Now basically what this code is doing is it's a shortcut button. It's creating a shortcut button for that. Well, you know, like on your computer you can create shortcuts. Now the code is pretty much this code here, which is being imported in because we're using the same shortcut text. So it's column.row.property. So that's the type of button we're creating, a column.row.property. And the property we're referencing is the context.activeObject. So that means the object we have selected. So it's going to reference a property on whichever object we have selected, and then .data. And that means it's going to go into the object data and look for whatever data we have referenced right here. Now the data we have referenced is layers, so it's going to create a shortcut button for the layers. Now index is basically which layer we want to reference. So index of 0 is that layer. Index of 1 would be this layer. So if I just run the script again, then hitting that turns on and off that layer, etc. But I normally keep my main layer as number 0. And you're probably going to want to do the same here. Now if you want to add more buttons, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is, copy this code you've written out for here, paste it in, change the index and the name. So the name here is going to be maybe L2, because we haven't got anything in layer 2, but we want a second layer for the sake of the example. Now as you'll notice, both of the layers have fallen on the same line, and if we keep adding layer and layer and layer, they're all going to stay on the same line, unless we add one of these to indent it. Now basically what it's going to do is it's going to add a column.row, which is blank, which in Blender basically just means it jumps onto the next line because it fills up the entire rest of the row. So if we're going to add any further code from here, we're going to want to put one of those there, because otherwise we're going to begin to clutter this area up with tons and tons of tiny buttons with text you can't read. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to, well, yeah, that pretty much just concludes the buttons part of the tutorial for the layers. However, the other thing I was asked to cover in this tutorial was sliders. So I'm going to copy the code in and then basically explain how it works. Oh, and I'm also going to copy in another bit of code and explain how that works too. Control C. Yeah, how about here? Control V. Okay. This bit of code here, actually I'm going to move it up here. Okay, col.label. That's basically going to create a bit of text. So here, that's a col.label. So I've got main layers as my col.label. See? And yeah, it's just going to add a... Oh, sorry. I'm quite tired. Yeah, it's just going to add the text. Pretty simple. Yeah, I'm going to have to take a break and be right back.